Work session. And the first item on our agenda today is a presentation by staff. Kara Silbernagel will be presenting our community survey update. And our other staff member, Laura Armstrong, is the proud mother of a baby girl born this weekend. I don't have a name. Do we have a name for the baby? No, we don't have a name yet, but as soon as we hear it, we'll make sure that everybody knows what the new baby's name is. So Kara, please, the floor is yours. Oh, let me just say, I've got Greg Poshman in the room with me today. I've got Francie Jacober in the room with me. We have Steve online, and Kelly McNicholas Curry is hopefully standing on her stand-up paddleboard on a lake in, I believe, Michigan?
Michigan.
So she may be calling in for the next item on our agenda, or she may still be on the water. So I hope she's having a good time and enjoying herself. So please, Kara, the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Kara Silbernagel in the manager's office. I have some really big shoes to fill for Laura, so I will do my best to try and fill her shoes today. But we wanted to come back to you regarding the 2021 Pitkin County Community Survey. If you do recall, we came to the board about 3 or 4 weeks ago, went over the survey questions, and based on board feedback, went back and looked at some of those questions and revised them based on some policy key items that the board had requested, and so are coming back today to see if we are ready to finalize it and move forward. Let's see. So again, assuming things based on the board's discussion today, we will plan to conduct the survey between August and September, and then we'll do the September and October timeframe for the online survey, and then in the late fall we'll get those results back from ETC, and then we'll be presenting those results back to the board and to staff. And somehow I skipped the slides, sorry. So the key discussion item for the board today is with the updates that were reflected in attachment A of the packet, which we'll go over at a high level. Is the BOCC ready to move forward with the version and release the 2021 Community Opinion Survey? So a summary of all the questions based on board discussion, and a lot of these were, if you may recall, during the board discussion in July, was really some of those questions were very service oriented, may not be reflective of where we are in a post-COVID world, as well as we know some of the big pressing items that are shaping our community and trying to get feedback from the community on those issues. So we revamped working with ETC and departments. Some key areas, one was related to quality of life questions, response to the COVID-19 pandemic, issues related to climate change, growth management, affordable housing, also addressing some pieces for mental health, equity and inclusion. Seems to be a common theme of the community preparedness for wildfires and natural disasters, and then some other items on sustainable workforce, economic assistance, childcare, and open space and trails. Revamped some of theirs based on the themes from COVID increases in recreation. So at a high level, what we did working with ETC, understanding previously the survey was very directed on service level questions, and some of those questions are still in there. But we wanted to work on a way to get at some of those policy questions, but still maintain that longitudinal survey that has been a benefit of this over time for the county. So working with ETC, we turn them into this prioritization exercise under the first question is really quality of life. I know it's kind of blurry, but it is in the packet too. So hopefully you can see that in attachment A. But it really is, I think it was Greg, you hit on it a little bit too about what are those key quality of life issues and trying to hear what does the community think about that today. And so we revamped question 1 to include elements related to a flourishing natural environment, a flourishing built environment, which aligns with our strategic plan, a place where everyone was respected regardless of race, gender, age, sexual identity, and other characteristics, and a place that is inclusive of full-time, part-time, or new residents. And so this is really trying to get a sense of that overall quality of life for residents in Pitkin County. And then the other big overhaul that we did was, again, related to question 3, the county services and initiatives. And so this is really where we tried to take in some of those bigger picture policy questions. And it's a similar format that we applied to question 1, which is their satisfaction and then their prioritization. What are the top 3 issues to help give some feedback for this board of what the community sees are those top issues. And so we included some elements related to the response to public health, the response to COVID-19 from a public health perspective, as well as the mitigation measures for COVID related to emergency assistance and economic hardship that was incurred because of COVID. So also added some efforts related to how the county is doing on climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, how we're doing related to affordable housing, mental health, and again, that preparedness for natural disasters. So those are the big revamps. We did, again, make changes to some of the other items within each subject to try and shorten the survey, but also bring in the requests that came from the board. I think we did a good job finding the balance, which is that we ended up on a 7-page survey, which is kind of the limit, but we brought in, again, some of those policy items while still leaving in some of those service level items to get a gauge of that impact analysis from the residents as we move forward.
Yeah, it looks good.
So
with that, I open it up to the board for conversation and feedback and suggestions.
Greg, Steve, go ahead, please.
Sarah, I really like the survey this year. I think you nailed it pretty well with the kind of changes that we asked for. We're getting feedback on some really major things that are current major issues that I think are very important. I only had one line item that I wanted to ask about, and that's line 27.2 having to do with high-speed internet. And it asks about, do you want high-speed internet over 100 megabytes per second? Well, I looked up mine today on Pathfinder, which is the county broadband, wireless broadband, and I basically get 40 megabytes per second is my speed here on the county system, which I'm very happy with it. I can't even contemplate what 100 megabytes per second would even be like in terms of service. But how did you arrive at the 100 number? Why didn't you pick something closer to what people are getting from the county system?
Great question, Steve. I think we went back and forth on this a little bit, and we can still change it. What this really is and this is a carryover from 2 years ago, but is that the 100 megabytes is really getting at kind of fiber as the gold medal for ultimate broadband service. So while we know 40 is great and is superior to what the FCC is offering, really what that question is getting at is is the gold standard of fiber broadband service available in your area, and maybe we need to reframe it to say not everyone knows fiber. I didn't until we got into broadband, so that's why we used 100 megabytes instead of fiber, but we could go back and forth of what's more common nomenclature for the public.
So I was wondering if maybe a better question might be to have people put down what level of service they get. And you could have greater than 100, 40, 20, whatever, or none. I don't get it at all, or I don't want it. Those could be the kind of potential answers. So I toss that out just as an idea. It depends on what we want, what information we want actually to get from this question.
How does the rest of the board feel? Greg?
Yeah,
Yeah, let me see what the rest of the board might think of that. To me, I think you could just leave out greater than 100 and just say being able to buy service at very high speeds, period. But
yeah, I think I would agree with Patty only because the technology's changing and the download speeds are changing as we speak. The one I've been following is Starlink, which is a satellite-based system that is promising to double by the end of the year, and they're in the 100 they're approaching 100 megabit per second already, according to their propaganda and other people's download speeds, which vary across the northern hemisphere. But it's happening so quickly. I think attaching a number to it isn't going to make sense to your average user anyway, unless they're a techno geek. It won't make any difference. So what people really want is broadband of quality, and we know the quality is increasing and the demands are increasing because there's more demand, more streaming, higher definition. It's all requiring more broadband. So if we can frame it in such a way that lets us know if they're comfortable with the way things are going as we're anticipating all these options, what we provide certainly would be important. And I don't know what our promise to them is, but perhaps we should say, is what we're providing to you satisfactory? Perhaps that's the way to frame it, just so we have something, so we know if what we're actually doing is going to be relevant to them in a year or two. Thanks.
Francie?
I think if I could, Steve, Patty, I mean. I forgot who was sharing.
How can you forget me? Let me let Francie pop in here first, John, and then you can follow Francie.
Oh, okay.
Might be able to help her question.
I agree about having a number there. I think the word dependable would be really important in item number 2, being able to buy dependable service with very high speeds, because I think that's an issue that, they go out. And then if we just ask, I think you said something like, are you satisfied with the internet service you're getting? Is that what you said, Greg? Something along that line?
Yeah, if they're getting it at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to say. So the Crystal River and the Frying Pan are going to go crazy over that.
Right. So that's a tough one, but
they're going to write all over it.
Putting 100 megabyte on it is probably irrelevant to 95% of the
But I do think we need the word dependable. So
I would, John, let's see what John has to say, and then I think, John, go ahead.
Yeah, and it may have moved past. I think the 100 megabytes per second, generally for 3 to 5 devices on a home network, anywhere from 50 to 100 megabytes per second is what's considered the necessary download speed. So I think that's how we got to the 100 megabytes per second. But we could just shift it to seeing our folks happy with the speed and reliability of their internet, without putting a number on it too, would be the other way to do it.
John, you make a good point. People are now on Zoom so much more of the time and teleconferencing constantly. Often in my house, there's 4 separate Zoom meetings going on. And so, it's multiple devices at full capacity, downloading and presenting video. So it's possible that the goalpost has changed a little bit since COVID and teleconferencing became so prominent. Maybe 100 megabytes is appropriate for that, but perhaps the question could say, you know, is everyone in your household able to get online at the same time and stream Netflix? You know, that might be it.
I think that with the combination of Francie's word dependable and leaving out the number is probably the information that we need. I mean, I would have no idea what my download is. I mean, yeah. And all I know is that sometimes it takes long enough that I can do a load of laundry, and that's probably not a bad thing. So let's, is the board okay with that? Just leaving out the number and putting in the word dependable?
Steve's got his hand up.
Yeah, Steve?
Well, I'm good with that. I think the ideal, which we maybe don't have room for one more question, would be to ask what internet speed you have available at your home. So that way we get an idea. If they are dissatisfied and they're already getting 100 megabytes per second, that's one thing. If they're only getting 20 or 10 or don't get any service at all and are dissatisfied, that's another indicator for us. I don't know if we have room to ask, even add one more question though, because it's, you know, it's a very tight, concise questionnaire as much as we can get it on 7 pages right now. But I would be in favor of the wording suggested to change that a little bit.
At question number 31, there is a space for anecdotal reporting, so I think there probably will be people who address the internet challenges they have where they're located in that space.
And it's so close, so. Yeah, I'd rather do that than add anything more. I mean, getting people to do 7 pages is gonna be a challenge as it is. Is the board okay then, taking out the number, putting in dependable?
Kara, what's Kara's take on that?
Yeah, and yeah, you can work on adding that word in. And I just want to call out, this is very helpful, but what I'm hearing the board say is we want to know the level of satisfaction related to current internet service. Right now, the way the survey is worded, we're asking them to evaluate how important it is to them. I'm looking that then down on question 28, we ask about level of satisfaction.
Oh, yeah.
So based on this conversation, I would also suggest we change that matrix over to the level of satisfaction versus important. If that's okay with the board?
Sounds good. It's a good idea.
Yeah, for some reason, the attachment that I printed off has the airport is 28, so.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, numbers are numbers, so if Kara, if you're comfortable with changing that language around, I think the board is supportive of that.
Yeah, airport's 28 for me too.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the airport is 28 on the stuff we have in front of us. So,
No, you're right. I just can't read numbers out loud.
Okay, all right, thank you for acknowledging my confusion. All right, board have any other questions or comments? I think Greg does, and now I have one question, but go ahead, Greg.
I apologize if I missed it, but regarding county-owned roads and bridges and trails, I have question number 20 on my page 8 or page 4, depending on which page number you look at. Perceptions of current transportation issues, shared use trails, availability of shared use trails, great. Parking, traffic safety on county roads, county snow removal, satisfaction with RAF to BRT, ease of travel by bicycle. I'm just wondering if we need to try to take the temperature of the community on how they feel about e-bikes or other transportation devices, because we're seeing so many more e-bikes. They're here to stay. Do we need separate trails? Do we need better signage? Do we need more safety measures? Thinking about Maroon Bells Road in particular, the answer to all those questions I think are yes, but it'd be nice to ask that question to the community. How are we feeling about the trails are now pedestrian, bicycle, and e-bike, and then maybe with a few other odd, strange one-wheeled contraptions thrown in, and then dogs are added to that mix. Is that an important question to ask? Also regarding transportation, I know The entrance is a C dot and maybe more of a city issue, but do we want to say anything about the corridor? And that's it for transportation.
Does anybody have comments before I make mine? I think that we have to remember we're trying to keep this at 7 pages so people will fill it out. I think the questions, Greg, you're asking are right, but that's a whole survey in itself. As far as e-bikes and the corridor and, you know, dogs and babies in strollers and, you know, all that. I think, again, that's why we've added the comment section, so hopefully people will expand on their concerns. But I don't want to get it so specific that people aren't going to fill it out. I think we need to get some basics, and we can come back with open space and trails if they choose to do a survey. So, Steve, what do you think?
It almost sounds more like a question for a survey for open space and trails staff to do on a trail. The people actually on the trail, surveying them rather than everybody. In terms of the e-bikes and other devices going on the trails.
Can I make a suggestion then? Sorry, Francie, you
Go
go
ahead.
first. It's just perhaps ease of traveling on bike trails in Pitkin County rather than by bicycle in particular. I'm just thinking that if a survey is too general, what's the value of the information on it? I look at a lot of questions here and I think, yeah, they're general, but they're so general. Is there really much going to come from it? That's not my field of expertise, but I think some of the biggest issues we have are around these alternative transportation sources, and there's really nothing in here that addresses it, and I think that's a missed opportunity. So maybe the last one, ease of traveling by bicycle in Pitkin County, or ease of traveling on bike trails. There's a slight difference there, but maybe that would encourage them to make a comment.
Well, one of the differences is people who don't use the bike trails and they ride on the road, particularly at the Crystal Valley end of things, which is really aggravating. But
You know,
I think the question on biking covers it.
well, yeah, and I think Kara, help me with this. One of the things that happens with our surveys, if we're finding a trend, then that will spur another survey. It'd be a survey on transportation if we see a lot of unsatisfactory or don't knows. That really focuses on issues that we might need to expand on with an open space and trail survey or a RAFTA survey or a public health survey or whatever the topic might be. So it'll make those things stand out, I believe.
And I just wanted, on the number 3, I would like to see traffic volume and safety. I really want to see a response to the traffic volume. I know it's too much and everybody's going to say it's too much, but I want them to say it. How do you guys feel about that?
Where are you on there?
Number 3 under current transportation.
Oh, I was going to.
20.
Question number 3, not 23.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Question number 20 and then sub item 3. Topic number 20.
Kara, can you fit and safety into there by maybe, abbreviating all the roads? Remember, we have to keep
Yeah.
this short and sweet, folks, or we're not gonna have anybody fill it out, so it won't matter what we ask. So,
We can work on getting that volume included into number 3. And I just wonder, going back to number 6, under transportation, one thing that I can work with ETC to see if we can add it in is if we say ease of traveling by bicycle on Pitkin County roads and trails. Because really what this area is about is, it is about biking on Castle Creek and those shared use trails. So maybe we just add a little bit more of a clarifier to number 6. That could be helpful.
okay,
That could be helpful, certainly.
the board's supportive of that?
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
be.
Steve, you're okay with it? Okay,
I had a question, just if there's anything about,
Yeah.
Threat assessment, hot button issues. Wildfire pops into my head. Do people, how serious do they think an issue wildfire is, or wildfire mitigation? Not sure if it fits in here, but I thought I'll have to throw it out.
There is something about emergency response to it.
Okay,
where
maybe
is
that's in there.
Yeah, Kara, what question was that under about wildfire? The first
Floods.
page?
I believe
Drought.
it's under number 3.
Yeah,
I just passed right over it.
Yeah, there it is.
yeah, including
Yeah, I
wildfire,
thought I saw
drought,
it.
floods, natural
Yeah.
disasters, and crisis.
Yeah,
Okay.
point,
I guess
oh,
then,
08 under number 3.
my last question would be, in the comment section, are we going to prompt them to, other issues, priorities? Okay, no, that looks good. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Thanks.
Kara, I have one clarification on, it's on page 2 under item 5. It has these numbers 543219. I'm not sure what that means.
That's the don't know answer for
Me
everything.
neither. I will get that cleaned up.
Okay,
But
I'm
it's,
like trying to
but,
track it.
but all your I am not sures and don't knows are number 9s.
Yeah, it's a Likert scale, which is 1 through 5.
Yeah.
And then the 9 is don't know.
Yeah, I think you should
code.
leave it. Because if it's a number, then it's gonna confuse your correlations. And
Or it's just confusing, 543219. Yeah, so just, we could just clean that up
Yeah.
so it's more consistent.
Question mark.
Yeah. No biggie. I'm not adding a page or more words. Okay, any other comments, questions for Kara?
No, but I think you did a great job, Kara, on taking our input and making it more concise and literate. It's really great.
Agreed. Thank
But
you.
there isn't a question on what
Full
Laura,
credit to Laura
Yeah.
on her work on this.
Okay, we'll pass it on.
do we have a
Lauren
question
did a
on
great
there?
job pulling this together.
Do we have a question on there is what should Laura name the baby? I don't think we should ask that.
You're corny.
All right, John, do you have anything else you want to add? Okay,
No, Kara, as long as Kara got what she needed.
Kara, you're good?
Yep. So with this, we'll make these couple little changes, and then ETC should be able to start distributing these in about 2 weeks. And it will start going out in the mail, and so we will keep you all updated as it moves forward. So thank you all.
Thank you. You know where to find us, and we know where to find you.
Thanks a lot, Kara.
Thanks. Perfect timing. So we are at 1:28. So we have 2 minutes to be set up for growth management discussion. And while you guys are doing that, I'm going to just make an announcement for the public. Hopefully we have members of planning and zoning tuned in to this and other members of the public who are following our growth management discussions. I want to just say that I have a feeling that the Board of Commissioners will take up this whole hour with questions and comments and presentation. So anyone who would like to, or has questions, would like to submit comments, I talked with Cindy Hubin from Community Development, and she said you are more than welcome to email her at Cindy, CINDY .Houben, HOUBEN, at pitkincounty.com. That is Cindy's email. So please do not hesitate to send Cindy your questions and comments in light of public comment not being part of this presentation today, which gives the Board of Commissioners a chance to ask what I think might be a lot of important questions. All right, so.
Thank you.
And Steve, we're getting a hard copy of the presentation. Should we have staff leave one on your desk and we'll leave one for Kelly? That'd be great, thank you. All right, if you are ready, the floor is yours.
Great, this is all good. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Hubin. I'm the Community Development Director for Pitkin County, and I have been for quite a while. So there's a lot that I remember, but there's a lot that I didn't know and learned a lot about recently by viewing a film. So if we want to get started, I'd first like to thank Alex Sanchez here, who is in my office, and our our senior administrative assistant, but is much more than that, and helped me pull all this together today, and has also been doing a lot of analysis for us lately with the data that we have, which might be part 2 of this initial presentation. But to start with, I'd also, if you want to move on.
Do we have a special thanks here going out too?
Yeah, I have some special thanks to say. But first of all, if the board would recall back in 2019, you had an objective or a vision that led us to start digging into growth management a little bit deeper. The P&Z had already been looking at growth management from a more technical perspective. Yours was more of an aspirational or a visionary kind of statement that brought us to looking at growth management today. So with that vision in mind, I'd like to just set the stage for today and say this is about history. This is about the history and the purpose of what growth management was in the beginning. And today's meant to be just fun because there's a lot of fun history that we have with it. And I'd like you to come out of this, though, understanding the setting for when growth management was adopted, as well as really understanding some of the foundational documents that went along with that, that we'll go through. And then looking at the goals that growth management was trying to achieve or accomplish at the time, and a little bit about the mechanics of the system and how that worked. So, but it's meant to be fun. Please interrupt me at any time you have questions and or comments, and we'll go from there. But before I get started, I would like to shout out a big thank you, not only to Alex Sanchez here, but to the creator of the film called Freak Power that we have borrowed clips from, and that's DJ Watkins, who owns the Fat City Gallery here in town, also known as the Gonzo Gallery, sells a lot of Tom Benton's art. Tom Benton was a big player at the time with the art that surrounded a lot of the movement that created growth management. And working with DJ was Alex Bicey. I hope I say that correctly. Oh, look, we have guests. I'm so happy
Hi,
you're here.
gentlemen.
I was just thanking you guys. Please have a seat. In the white shirt, we have DJ Watkins, the
Hi, DJ.
creator of the film Freak Power. And I was just about to also thank Bob Broadus and DJ. They put together this book that is also called Freak Power and has a lot of wonderful history for you to go through. And DJ was sweet enough to give me a copy, so I'm going to keep it up at my office, but please feel free to check it out, but I want it back. So thank you. Thanks, guys, for showing up.
Perfect timing.
Appreciate it. So we're just getting started. And
You want Bob or I to say anything at all?
Well, you know, we don't have public comment, but because you two gentlemen took the time to come and join us, if you'd like to say a few words to kick it off, is the board okay with that? I think.
Well, actually, after the clip, I'd suggest.
would you like after
How
or
about
before?
afterwards? It's up to you.
I'd like to see my name spelled right.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
not spelled right?
I saw that too.
Oh my gosh.
There's no N in it.
I'll,
There's no second U in it.
right.
We will
Oh.
Sorry.
We are so glad that you caught that. We were checking to make sure.
Quickly you forget.
It was yelling out at me, actually. Like,
I noticed it too, just
Fred,
how are you, Bob?
Sorry.
congratulations.
So,
Thank you. It is
Sydney,
so
how
nice to
long
see
will
you. It's
the-
been a long time.
I can get through my presentation probably in about 20-25 minutes if you want.
We'd like to just say a few words and then we have to run.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
All I
let's do
wanted
it.
to say is Hunter
Wait,
Thompson.
you need to come up to the mic so we can get you on camera.
Okay, cool.
Do we have that camera turned on? That is on?
All I was gonna say is that, you know, Hunter Thompson is known as kind of the wild man for his antics and his behavior. But in these clips that you'll see, you know, you can see that he was really prescient about his ideas about the county and how things were moving back then. And I think that it's really illuminating to see these fights that were going on in 1970 and then how they relate to today, 50 years later. And Joe Edwards, I think, said it best, that a lot of Hunter's campaign was related to land use and development, and it wasn't so much about law enforcement, although that was a big part of it. Hunter wanted to expand the notion of the sheriff's office to encompass all sorts of different fields: environmental protection, development, protecting the environment. And I think that one thing that we can take away from this story and his ideas is that he inspired a whole slew of people to make efforts to protect the valley, and later on Dwight Shellman and Joe Edwards and others, including Bob, carried out a lot of his ideas. So although he didn't win his campaign, he was kind of a fearless crusader to put these ideas out there, even going as so far as to say, let's mall all of downtown. And how do we handle the cars coming into town? And all these ideas. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for bringing this to people's attention, and I think we can learn from it.
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you, DJ.
And DJ, the book can be purchased at your,
At the gallery and online at freakpower.com. And the film can be found on Amazon and iTunes.
we were asking about that earlier.
And we purposely tried to take a tack with the film to focus on the important ideas that Hunter came up with, and not focus on kind of the wild behavior and not the fear and loathing side of Hunter.
Great, thank you. Important.
Mr. Broadus, whose name we will promise to spell correctly.
You were a commissioner here, weren't you?
I did 2 years of land use and zoning. I jumped back into public safety. But, excuse me, since I retired and hooked up with DJ Watkins, I watched him open 10 pop-up art galleries, always with a great theme. Over the years, we've done Gonzo Arabia with artists from Saudi Arabia and other Far Mideast countries. This year, we hosted some Syrian refugees who were tortured, and I'm basically stroking DJ for keeping the Gonzo bloodstream alive, and he, as well as I, and all of you, I assume, see our infrastructure being overwhelmed this summer. The traffic is all day, both ways. The interstate closing doesn't help, but we're handling tons of interstate traffic on Main Street right now. I'm not here to bitch and whine. I think all of our county commissioners have been really vigilant protecting our environment, and I just hope that you and your successors do the same. Thanks for all the work. I'll see you later.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah,
Thank you,
both for
guys.
coming.
Thanks, yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
We
so
gotta
much.
go sell some art.
We appreciate your sharing your vision with us.
When's the next book signing?
Thank you so much.
Soon.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What
Take
a
care.
pleasure.
Love you guys.
Be
Bye.
safe out there. Good to see you.
That was really great to see you guys. You added a lot of flavor to this room.
They did. And, you know, I'll tell a quick story with that. I had a poster that was a Tom Benton poster, and I was a little intimidated to go into the Gonzo Gallery because everybody's so cool, and I'm not. And I thought, oh my gosh, these people are so cool. But I went in with my poster, and I just thought maybe they wanted it for display or whatever, because it was an original Tom Benton. And DJ looked at it, and it was in pretty bad shape, but he said, you know, I'll give you $100 for it. And I thought, oh, I wasn't even coming in for that, but okay, I'll take it. And then he proceeded to give me the book and the movie, and quickly I realized that there was more going on there than just the selling of the art. And he inspired me to create sort of the background for you guys, because I know that you know it, Steve. I know you know it like the back of your hand, growing up with it. And Greg, I'm sure, you know, you both know it from a perspective that I can't even imagine. But With that, and with the thank yous, I just wanted to say that now I'd like you to step back for a second, think about where you were in the mid-1970s, and think about where the nation was, because it was the setting for what was created here. And at that time, Nixon was our president. The Vietnam War was happening. A lot of young people were seeking refuge in trying to find a new way of life, trying to create a way of life that they felt spoke to them in society that wasn't paying attention, they felt, to their perspectives and their life. And also, I think that at that time, the atmosphere, because I'm not showing you the whole movie, but the atmosphere really was such that people wanted to create an environmental consciousness that wasn't present at that time. If you remember, during that time, there was, the very first recognition, strong opposing of pollution in our communities, and a lot of new thoughts were coming out. So with that, I wanted you to just kind of remember, sit back, think about where you were and what was going on. And now we're going to show you a little bit of what was going on here in Aspen and the mindset that ultimately led to using the land use code that Bob might yawn over, but the land use code really was the tool that was used at the time to instill the values and to implement the values that everyone's talking about right here. And ultimately, growth management was created. So there you go.
Snow. Yes, a mountain of snow. 1,000 acres of the world's finest ski terrain, spilling out into the streets of a town called Aspen.
Fabulous mecca of lodges, private chalets, shops, and nightclubs featuring top entertainers.
Heated pools where there was once a miner's camp.
And new houses were built.
Aspen, waiting to be discovered again. One of the ski capitals of the world. Aspen will teach you. Aspen has a choice. Aspen's winter climate. Aspen Mountain. Aspen. Aspen had finally taken its place at the top.
I think the traditional business community, more is better. More business, more money, more tourists, more everything. You just build and build and build and bring in more and more and more. It's gonna destroy that magical experience that we were all having.
Nothing's gonna stop me from. We'll be doing it tonight.
That was the 70s, that footage?
No, that was earlier.
Yes,
the
it had to
early
have
ski
been
stuff, yeah.
quite a bit earlier.
What was exciting about Aspen was it seemed like there were a lot of people who had dropped out of the rat race. I mean, it was a crazy time in the country.
I had tried the corporate route, many of my friends had. I came here for skiing and the mountains. Beyond the skiing, it was the people. There was never a lack of intellectual conversation.
It was just this kind of odd assortment of people that were converging here because we wanted to make a new life. We wanted to leave behind the life of the city. We wanted to leave behind the life of the military-industrial complex. We were aberrant to the American dream. We were aberrant to their right to pillage and to build wherever they wanted to build. So we were freaks of nature. So let's own it. Let's call ourselves freaks.
What was exciting about Aspen was it seemed like there were a lot of people who had dropped out of the rat race.
You get a switch there?
There we go.
What's important is okay, we're saying the concept is to save our valley.
the idea is to like establish a political consciousness here of people who are ready to take a stand and say, I'm not going to let these developers come in here and sell it out from underneath me. I'm not going to let this place be raped by people who don't live here, by people who don't care about it here.
Most of his campaign had to do with development issues. You know, he's going to run the greenhead developers out of town.
Crowding the streets is merely another way of saying banish all traffic from the downtown area. I don't see anything undesirable about that at all. I think it's one of the most desirable things we could possibly do here.
So with that, there are a lot of young people here. I mentioned that came here, but interestingly enough, sort of a mecca for young attorneys. And we had Joe Edwards and Dwight Shellman early on in this campaign that helped not only with the Hunter Thompson campaign, but later became elected officials and are credited with the beginnings of growth management in Pitkin County. And later, of course, Michael Kinsley, who you all know, joined them, and there were 3 commissioners at the time, not 5. So with that, I wanted to start to get into some of the adoption of the first growth management system. And there are a couple documents, and I'm sure if I went back to some of the planners then, they'd say, oh, there was much more, Cindy. But the ones that stood out to me in terms of the foundational documents for growth management are a couple of things. And that's a picture of a map, but I wanted to give you each one of these. I'm not going to give them to you because they're historical documents and they really should be in a museum. This is, you can pick out the one that's of your area. I have one that's around Wood Creek, North Creek. I have one that's of the Crystal Redstone. I have one that's right around town. And what it is the original type of GIS that we used to have. And this, you are touching the original documents that were used in 1978 to create the growth management system. And that survey right there, my understanding is it was actually done by Joe Wells. And Joe Wells,
Really?
yes, who we all still know, took those tracing papers, put them over 7.5-minute quads, went around the entire county and made a copy and did.
Sorry about the
No,
noise.
that's okay. We'll make sure it's okay. And so what he did is he documented every single.
Wait, hold on, because I have a feeling we're not hearing you.
I'm sure
or
we're
hearing
not.
Crinkle.
But you should line yours up. It's pretty fun.
But the problem is the mics pick up all the rustling paper and it overwhelms the speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can look at them later in your leisure.
Turn our mics off for a second.
But I did want to point that out because, yeah, it's GIS. It's the original GIS. It's going out and taking the data. And I'll tell you why that was so important. It was our first survey of all the residences and structures in Pitkin County. And so we have the maps for the entire area. I've actually used these maps more recently right around town to help the city understand if a structure was actually a duplex way back when, or if it was illegally converted later. So they're really valuable documents.
Are these coded on, so you can look at something and tell if it's a duplex or not? Or
Yeah, they're coded on the bottom. Some of it's hard to read today, but I know what the ledger, I know what it's all about, so I could help you if you needed to know. But without getting into too much detail, I just wanted you to actually touch and feel and see the time when that was, the way business was done, and the extent to which these guys had to go in order to create our baseline data for our residential development. So I'm gonna, Francie, I'm gonna pull a teacher move, and I'm gonna say, put that away.
I want to see my neighborhood.
Put that away. I didn't know you'd be
Mrs. Old
so
Snowmass.
interested, but please put that away. And
Phillips.
now I'm gonna go to the second foundational
Oh,
document.
I remember that.
This is a document called, I've always called it the Green Book. It was introduced to me as the Green Book. And this is even, in my mind, more fascinating from a data perspective than what I just shared with you. And what this does is it creates the first analysis, if you will, about housing and population, the ski industry, business activity, governmental community services, which is what we call infrastructure today. It talks about sewer facilities, water facilities, the airport, employee housing, and the fiscal analysis. And then it goes into basically summarizing an account of what you just saw with that those tracing paper surveys. And it talks about the baseline number of residential structures as well as commercial and tourist accommodations that we had in Pickens County. And then it analyzes it all and creates the foundation, the policy work for the growth management plan and the growth management quota system that was adopted after this. So these are all what I would consider the foundational documents that I'd like you guys to really understand as a way of understanding the history of growth management so that we can learn from that and then move forward and in terms of where we want to go in the future. So with that,
Now, should we get a copy of the Green Book?
we will send you an electronic copy of the Green Book.
Excellent, thank you.
And can I ask?
Yeah.
It was adopted jointly by the city and county.
Thank you for pointing that out. I wanted to
That's
do.
really important.
Thank you.
Bless you.
I got caught up. It is so important that this was a time when everything was a lot smaller, work was a lot less for everyone, I'm sure, in terms of the volume. But yes and no. I mean, there were 12% growth rates at the time. People were coming unglued with what was going on in the community, and that's why the urgency to create this. But at the time, the city of Aspen and Pickens County had a joint planning office. And that planning office created the growth management system. And so it was a system that applied not only to the city, but to the county. Today, I am focusing on the county's part of that growth management because it was an elaborate system. And I love the graphic because it points an arrow that everything's connected. And so as Bill Kane used to say, if you squeeze the toothpaste tube here, it's going to pop out over here. You know, so everything's connected. And the city had its own growth management rate of growth, as did the county. And it's all based on those original works that we have here. But I'll focus today on just trying to emphasize to you the structure of it so that you'll understand how it worked and what we got out of it and what we might want to take from it in the future. So yes, for until I want to say it was around maybe 93, the departments were joint. And not only was there a joint planning department, there was a joint environmental health department and several other departments that were joint that Patty, you might remember. I can't remember all of them, but it was, to me, from a planning perspective, brilliant. Because today, when we look at our issues, we keep saying, hey, this is valley-wide, we all have to work together. And what the city does affects what the county does, and what the county does affects what the city does. And I think it's a great lesson to learn from the past. That was some of the glue that kept us together in our regulatory scheme for growth management and some of our other regulations.
And I think at some point, as we move through our growth management discussion, we need to look at that, where the city has gone when we separated departments, and what areas we might want to be back together on the same page.
Right.
And
And
I
I know-
think that's going to be important. And as you said, it's not just about us, it's about, you know, the county, it's about all of the municipalities and jurisdictions in the valley, but specifically with the city, starting with this document. I think that's going to be key.
Cindy, out of interest, when was the West of Maroon Master Plan created?
That was 2013.
Recent.
Okay, it's much more recent.
Yes, and I'll just step back another moment here and I'll get into it in a little while, but as you know, the way regulations are put into place start with plans. And so the plans that are created, we had some very early Aspen area plans that I wish I'd brought one. It was the whole plan. You guys would love the simplicity of it. It was poster size. That was the plan. It was graphic. It told you what the zoning was, and it had a couple sentences about what that meant, and that was it. And from there, we moved in. I'm sure there were plans in between of all sorts, but from there in 1993, we had the first contemporary, if you will, Aspen Area Community Plan. And that plan has gotten a lot of recognition through the years because that was our first character-based plan, where the community came out and said, we have a unique character here and we want to try to keep that. And what is that going to mean to us? And so the Aspen Area Community Plan in 1993 was the beginning plan for that. And from there, that plan has been updated in 2000 and again in 2012. And I know that jointly we need to determine when that next update will be. But it, like we said, it's aspirational, and then it informs and helps us determine what our regulations should be.
Didn't it have a set time frame of updating?
Yeah.
Every 5 to something years? I remember
Yeah.
that when we undertook
due.
it in the 20s.
Well, it was 5, I believe, for the whole financial model part of it, and maybe 10 for the plan. But
It's a huge undertaking.
It's huge. It's really a big undertaking, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Looking
Can we get that poster digitally that you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Which
no.
one was it, out of interest?
The very first one, the poster plan. It was called the Aspen Area Plan.
Right, okay, great. It would
And
be fun to see, have that.
yeah, it's pretty
Maybe
fascinating.
Zach could print some up
Yeah.
on a big printer.
Well,
That'd
it
be
was
really nice to have in here, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was referred to in the Aspen Area Community Plan first
right.
evolved, and then as the other renditions of the Aspen Area Community Plan. But
Right. So, and there are great other plans, Highway 82 Corridor Master Plan, you know, just, we could spend a whole day and I could go through all the plans, but.
I'll do that.
I see you glazing over already. So,
Not at all.
no.
I'll sign up for that one.
Oh, good, okay.
Aspen Area
I-
Community
I'm
Plan?
yeah. Well, I
Did you
will-
hear
well,
that? We want that documented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, we're signing up. We'll have more going on. But here's a couple more snapshots that, again, thanks to DJ and his crew, they archived and found all these documents of, to me, this, who knows what they were really doing. It could have been during the campaign, but I like to think of it as they were, you know, beginning to craft our first growth management regulations.
That's in the old commissioner room with the old
Yes.
Yeah.
And Francie, I don't know if you would know this even, but in the courthouse, if you walk straight back, there's a pretty small room.
Door.
It's a pretty small room. And that used to be where we had all of our Board of County Commissioner meetings. And people would pack into that room on different occasions, but that was the boardroom for many, many, many years.
And it became the P&Z meeting room when I was on P&Z.
Right.
See,
It was really one of the only, it was one of the few meeting rooms we had.
This
Is
is
this the
really
room
fun.
that has the safe door in it now, since the remodel?
I don't know.
No, I don't
It's
know.
just
It's
that-
you go up the
that's
front stairs or the front doorway and you just walk right straight back and it's right there. It still says Commissioner's Meeting Room or something on it.
It's just right fun to look at. I recognize faces. I recognize people.
Do you
in the
recognize some
background.
people other than Dwight and
I think
Joe?
Warren Connor is in one of those, and Don McKinnon is in one, and that's all these faces are starting to pop out. So this is fun.
Do you know who the woman is?
I thought originally she looks too young to be Eve Homeyer, but I'm not sure. This could be at the. Well, they're taking minutes. They're recording this, so certainly it's an official meeting.
Yeah, well, I'll try to find out who that was.
Yeah, somebody
because
will
I
know.
don't know. But with that, and with all these great pictures of these guys who were so instrumental,
Michael Kinsey would probably know.
he wasn't quite there yet.
But
He came, I want to say, right after '78, but we should ask him.
He might
I didn't.
I still might know who that was.
And that's
Yeah.
Tom Benton right in the front on this picture.
That's Tom Benton, the
Oh, really? Which
artist.
On the-
He's the
Oh, in
art-
this picture?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He's the artist who probably created this, and it was funny. I'll read the quote out loud so people can see it at home. But I was talking to Alex about it. This was in Rulison when
Oh, no
they
kidding.
set off the atomic
I was gonna
bomb
say, oh
in
my.
1969, and this was a protest about that. Which I didn't even read that caption. I was just going for the quote, which was a Hunter Thompson quote that again emphasizes what DJ said earlier, that the environment was taken very seriously during this time, and crimes against our environment rank as high crimes against people. Let's train our law enforcement officers to be able to detect both. That means we will have greater protection, not just for today, but for tomorrow as well. And if you borrow the Freak Power book, there's actually an outline, if you will, that Hunter Thompson put together that was very coherent about how to set up a police force that basically were enforcement officers for environmental protection. I thought that was fascinating.
Could we get them to do that now?
Got some county roads that need some attention.
So with that, that first growth management system, from my perspective, there were four main key features that they wanted to accomplish. And that was taking those early inventories and saying, okay, we like it, so let's keep a balance. Let's keep a balance and not get too far ahead with too much residential and not enough commercial. Let's not get too far ahead with too many tourist accommodations, but not enough residences. So I was trying to figure out a three-way balance scale to put in there, but that was a real primary foundational threshold piece of the legislation. And Francie, I'm just thinking about that Redstone did the same thing. Redstone later said, we want to create zoning that keeps that balance for us. So they created the village commercial, village residential, and village tourist accommodation zoning for the village of Redstone. And if you read their master plan back then, I can't remember the date, I want to say 98, I'm not sure, they emphasized the original underpinnings of growth management with their zoning in Redstone. So I thought that was interesting. So we learned from that, and we took from that later. The second underpinning or key feature, I would say, of growth management was pacing of development. And this one's kind of complicated, but not so much that we can't understand it. But what they did is they took the maps that you have, and they said, okay, let's take that baseline of the number of residences that we have and say, we don't want to grow more than 2.47%. Where that came from was the analysis that was done in the Green Book of how much water, how much sewer, how much we can really deal with in terms of carrying capacity in the community. And although carrying capacity was something that legally wasn't, it was on the edge of legalities. So I don't know, I asked John Ely to watch today. He may have something to add to that at some point. But so they took that from the baseline data and they created the 2.47% growth rate. What that meant to Pitkin County from the residential perspective, I'm only going to focus on residential here because that's kind of the big deal for us. 2.47% equaled 24 units of growth a year.
Oh my God.
What that meant was
Wow.
you could have 24 units of growth. We had to account for the fact that there were all these old subdivisions out there, and legally they had the right to build. Okay, so what comes to mind? I don't know why I'm looking at you, Francie, but what comes to mind is like Swiss Village. That was created back in the 60s, probably. And so Swiss Village already had the right to, and I have no idea, but let's just say it had the right to 30 houses. Okay, so that had the right and was exempt from going through a growth management process. But anything that was new, and in my day when I first started, there were all kinds of subdivisions that were out there. The Maroon Creek Club was in Pitkin County. Owl Creek, North Owl Creek and East Owl Creek, those were all subdivisions that were coming online. They all had to compete in growth management. And so what happened was, when I was first in the planning office back in 1985, one of my first jobs was every year I had to go and ask the building official for all the records that now Alex could get at the snap of his fingers, but back then, it was all hand done. I had to ask for all the records of how many building permits were let that year.
Wow.
And so if it was over 24, because they were pre-existing and say all of Swiss Village decided to build that year, if it was over 24, which was the 2.47% growth rate, there was a minimum amount legally that had to be able to be applied for in growth management to compete for the new development. So say Alex wanted to split his property into 3, so he would have the ability to come in and compete. And back then it was quite competitive. The growth management system, it was a closed bid system. So if each of you had property that you wanted to develop or have more units than what you had on it today, and under zoning you were allowed to, you would be competing against each other for that minimum amount that was allowed. And I was trying to remember, I think at one point it was 7 units, and then I think at one point it was 3 units that were allowed per year. But if not much had come through the building department that year, say only 10 units had come through the building department that year, we could have competition for 14 units to make up that 24. So that's how that worked. And it was kind of genius in a way because it not only kept the pacing at that overall percentage that the baseline data was all about, and it only allowed you to pace at a certain amount. In retrospect, it also accounted for the any construction. So if I had a house and I demolished it and I came in for a new building permit, that counted. And that helped with the overall pacing and intensity, what we call intensity today. So that was something that really was interesting, and it hit me when I was going through this that was.
That was for just the Crystal Valley?
No, that was
for the whole county?
The whole county.
24
Except
units?
that, let me tell you, I'm sorry. Back then, the Crystal and the Frying Pan were not part of the original growth management. It was for the base of the valley. The Crystal and the Frying Pan came online in growth management much later, and I don't have those dates on the top of my head, but I'll find out.
And you competed for development, not square footage?
Exactly. You developed,
now it's
you
a
were
square
competing
footage
for the right to build a house. That house didn't have square footage associated with it. It was just the right to build a house. And that was it.
So then when you got to 24, you just didn't give any more permits?
They had a minimum amount that legally had to be given out, and that was either 3 or 7, depending on when you came about in time. Initially, I think it was 7. and then the commissioners
On
put
top
that
of
back.
the 24 that were allowed by previous subdivision?
Yeah, that was everything, new and approved. It didn't matter what had been approved, it was when they came in for their development approval that they got counted. So, as growth rate, so,
So previously approved subdivisions of 24 units could take up the whole year?
they could have, yeah.
And then nobody could come in, and it just depended, if you were the first of previously approved that came in, you got him, and the second guy may be previously approved, but he didn't get in time.
No, I'm not saying there was ever a limit. What happened was, those numbers, that 24, just informed growth management. It didn't mean if I had 30 units in a subdivision and all 30 came in 1 year, they could.
Okay,
They
that's what I'm
could.
saying, they
It
weren't
wasn't-
included in that.
It wasn't a limit, but we would note that and say, okay, more than 24 came in that year, 6 more came in that year. So we would deduct that from the next year.
Oh, really?
And so then, but there always had to be 7 available for competition. So you never closed down development. It was a
That's how they
pacing.
got around
It was a
closing it down.
pacing of development, but it encompassed more than what we're encompassing today, because it encompassed pre-existing rights to build as part of that count.
And nothing
today-
rolled over from year to year like our square footage we were doing. We were, if you didn't use all your square footage in 1 year, we were rolling it into the next. We weren't eliminating it. And then
We
were
weren't
like, what do we-
eliminating, we always had some to give out. We always had that minimum of 7, or
Yeah.
later, maybe 3, I can't remember, to give out.
But if you didn't use the 24, you didn't roll over the extra, the leftovers into the next year, so that 24 would have been 30 if you had 5 left over from the year before.
I don't believe you did.
Like we did with square footage
Right.
under the more recent growth management. We rolled over, and then we were going, what are we doing? That's, if you don't use it in that year, it's done, and we'll
Yeah.
start fresh the next year. We changed that
Right.
some years ago.
I'm gonna note that and check that fact, because I wanna make sure I'm telling you the truth
Yeah.
about whether or not those numbers rolled over. I don't believe they did.
Because it was funny that we chose to roll over square footage that was unused. That should never have happened.
That was something that happened,
Greg has a,
yeah, I'm
Just
sorry.
thinking that a 2.4% growth rate, that's the development growth rate, right?
That was in,
Back
that was
then.
set in 1978, and that was it for many, 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 many
And
years.
so I have that as about a 28-year doubling, right? So
Yeah.
we're pushing on 60 years next, will be the next milestone. So this was 68, or what year was that?
78.
78, okay, so it's only,
Actually, the survey was probably done in 74 or 5, I'm not sure. It's written on there.
so back when they were writing it, that seemed like a really long time.
It did.
Looking back at it,
These
it's
guys
like,
were
it
these
wasn't
guys were in
long
their
enough.
20s themselves.
Right.
That seemed like forever.
Right,
probably.
seemed like forever.
Yeah.
We had a conversation about that.
and they knew those of us who may have not have been born then were gonna be paying the price of that now.
Exactly, yeah.
So with that, I'm going to move along with the community goal. I'm running out of time. I never thought this would happen. The community goals, we talked about it. They were about the environment. They were about making sure that scenic was important in our community. And they were, at that time, land use codes weren't as strong as they are today. And so there were a lot of things that ultimately became standards in our land use code, like setbacks from streams, or how I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of them. I'm drawing a blank, but there were standards. Oh, even then, having an adequate septic system. I mean, all those things were standards. The utilities part of things, having adequate water, all those things became part of a scoring system. So I would compete against you if I had a much more environmentally friendly site to develop. Then I was going to win growth management, and your project may not get anything that year, and you may have to come back.
We have a setback from streams requirement?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we have a very
Well,
strict one.
there was just a house built down on, off of Cemetery Lane, just before you get to across the river, what's the name of that road?
Red Butte?
Yes.
Sierra Vista, Red Butte,
That is on the
Black
river.
Birch,
It's on the river.
grandfather.
Could have been, and that's in the city.
That's in the
That's
city.
in the
yeah.
city. They have setbacks too, but I think there's a lot of, pre-existing, they probably had a house there before, and so they were able to come up to where they were.
Because when you sit on that deck,
Mm-hmm.
you're closer to the river than I am to Greg.
Yeah, you can rebuild if you're in the same footprint, you just can't encroach further.
I'm not really sure what the city rules are,
But that's how the county
Yeah,
says.
but the county now has a 100-foot setback, although we still do have that pre-existing clause. If you were closer, you can't increase it, the nonconformity, but you can build back. So,
Must be like
yeah.
that.
And that brings me to the next part about site planning. Site planning was really important in the growth management system. You'd get points for what I just said. If you had a better site than you did, you'd get more points and you'd win the competition. But a lot of it was based on some early legislation that we were so lucky in our state we had, and one of them was a House bill that was called 1041. And that legislation became regulation for us. And it talked about, and we have a whole set of plans and maps based on 1041. So we know where the major migration corridors are for elk and deer and
Slope well higher.
yeah, we know where some of the rockfall and mudslide areas are. We try to keep people out of harm's way with the 1041 regulations, as well as preserve the environment with the 1041 regulations. Those regulations were part of the scoring system originally, but then became standards in the code. And when they became more and more standards of the code, we were able to get those and some of the utilities or infrastructure types of scoring out of the growth management scoring system. And today, I'm not going to go into it much because we don't have time and we don't want to today, but today we are trying to envision what should that scoring system look like today? What are our values and what are our goals today? So I'll just leave it at that when you want to think about things.
So you're saying is that in the previous versions of GMQS, we were able to score on points that are now required anyway, so you don't get points for doing what you have to do anyway.
Right.
So, and now we need to revisit that because of energy code issues, because we've codified so many good things, we believe,
Right.
that you don't get to double dip. You
But
have
is
to
there
do it, you don't get
competition
points.
for development now, or is it just timing?
There's not a lot of competition for development now, and we will talk about that and why.
Because we did just ask you to expedite one permit, as I recall,
Yes, but that,
which is kind of like a point system.
well, it didn't have to go through growth management because it did such a good job with preserving the environment that the commissioner said they wanted to preserve with an open space master plan. It was totally exempt from growth management. So that was a different process, but
Because of the master planning process.
but that will come into play when we start looking at our current system. Because it's important to remember that. It's an exemption from growth management. So, a little bit more of the film.
Hunter Thompson comes along just at the right time. He comes along at a time when a lot of people in Aspen are really beginning to seriously question the future of the valley. And he touches the public nerve with questions of value. And that's what it's all about. It's about values. What are you for, man? What do you believe in? Do you want this shit tired of the same old shit?
Sorry, I knew I had a little profanity, but
Now, where is he?
That's okay.
I don't remember that name.
Yeah, he's still around.
he's
Yeah,
a
he will
photographer.
interview. Yeah.
I
What-
think he's a photographer.
yeah.
Someone told me. I don't know
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
No, I know people who are in touch with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with this, Francie, it's like perfect timing in terms of what you were just asking. And I sent this to you ahead of time. I don't know if you had a chance to really.
It's really hard to read on the.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Okay.
had to make it pretty big,
Yeah.
but I did read it.
Print it out, I didn't know.
And I apologize. It is hard to read, and we will get a better copy of it. It's even a little hard for me to read, but I made I made myself some notes.
That's great. I like it.
Yeah, isn't this the best? This, okay, envision the poster, the simplicity of the poster way back when. This is just one section of our code today and what it does. This is growth management. And so if you start in the right-hand corner where it says Pickens County Comprehensive Plans, I just kind of want to walk you through how this works. I numbered that as number 1. That whole light blue, Pickens County Comprehensive Plans, we've got the Aspen Area Community Plan, we've got all our caucus plans, and now you've got our Climate Action Plan. Those are our foundational documents no matter what. That's like when we go up to the caucuses and we say, what do you want? That's where they put what they want. That's where the county can go to a reference document and say, oh, I know what you're saying about mobile homes. I know what you're saying about the environment. I know what you're saying about transportation. So that's where the county can go back and use those as reference documents when making decisions. So the blue line goes out and it points to the land use code. When we adopt, or the Planning and Zoning Commission adopts a master plan, it is then all the action items from that master plan hopefully get translated into law in the land use code. So then you've got code amendments that say, okay, we're gonna implement what that neighborhood or what that community or what the Aspen Area Community Plan said it wanted, and we're gonna make that law through code amendments. And those code amendments go through a series of meetings, public hearings with the Board of County Commissioners where we take public input and you determine whether or not it's a good thing or not given the community goals. So with that, if you go down to the red where it says underlying zoning, that's what kind of sets the stage for everything in the land use code. And I just wanted to bring that in because that's where we have authority. That's where we say what uses are allowed on a piece of property. Can you put a house there, or is that a commercial? Or can you put
more ski runs there?
More ski runs there or not? I mean, those are the things that are part of our zoning. And it's part of the density, it's part of the intensity, it's part of the community values. And that's what zoning's all about. And we have that authority under state law. And the Board of County Commissioners can decide to zone and rezone
And
all
the
day
people
long.
have the right to come back before us for rezoning based on justification of
Exactly.
any zone within the county.
Exactly. And so with that, and then the land use code and the master plans, through the land use code, or part of the land use code, is the blue dot in the center, growth management. And everything else from there in this chart relates to how growth management works and what we're trying to get out of it. You know, the initial benefits, I think I talked to you about the actual pacing of growth and the location, the siting. We kind of combine those into 3 here, but I think it's those 4 underpinnings that we talked about a minute ago. And then what are the benefits to the community with growth management? And so at the very top, you know, we're trying to preserve community character. We're maintaining and preserving affordable housing, environmental preservation, and civic and institutional support. So I think those are kind of the real high arch of what growth management's trying to do. And it's up to you to determine whether or not that's really being accomplished, or if in fact today we have new values and new goals that we've set out to do. But Francie, back to your question of, we just asked you to accelerate a permit that to get that rolling for us. Well, interestingly enough, these kind of pink or reddish blocks are all about exemptions from growth management. So the classic one today that everybody talks about is TDRs. They're exempt from growth management. If you want square footage today, you go through a growth management process, or you can buy a transferable development right. And the reason that was set up was, all about our goals. So how do we accelerate the preservation of the backcountry? We say you can lift your development right away from the backcountry and create 2,500 square feet that can land somewhere else in the community. And that's how transferable development rights work. And to make that more of an incentive for people, because time is money and all of that in our system, you're exempt from the growth management competition system. Same with several other major conservation kinds of moves. And we have what's called the Conservation Development, Planned Unit Development, and we have a low impact regulation. We also have, what am I trying to think of? The Open Space Master Plan. We have, if you want to go with a really big parcel and you just want to cut off 500 acres and really downzone yourself, from development, we'll let you be exempt from growth management. And also TDRs in the beginning were used as development rights themselves, not as just square footage. Mm-hmm. So in the urban area, if I want to subdivide a piece of property that I have, I can go out and buy transferable development rights and use those as my new subdivided lots instead of having to compete in growth management. So that's another incentive for an exemption with growth management. So it's a broad way of looking at what we have today. And I really would like to come back and work with you guys more about where we are so that we understand everything, not only the history, but in conclusion, kind of, where we were looking in 2019 and some of the work we did in 2020, coming back again. I think this background work is really important. Patty, you synthesized it really well on a couple of main points, and I think that the more we see it, the more we understand it, and the more we get it. So with that, it'll help set us in motion for where we want to go in the future with growth management, and we can determine, is growth management still a tool that works for us? I mean, it's been 41 years, I think, and so I think we honestly need to ask ourselves what it does for us today and what we want to, what goals we want to achieve. So I'd like to come back in a part 2 series, a work session, and go over that chart more and really get into detail with you. But I wanted to remind you what you said at your retreat so that I'm kind of urging us not to get too far ahead of ourselves, because you've sent me out to do a lot of work and I have to have the time to get that done and bring it back. And I think we promised the community that we're coming back with a broad public outreach, so for our public input, so we'll be looking at that. But you've asked me to do several major things and you gave us some money. We're out there doing an economic study. We're doing greenhouse gas regional update and analysis, looking at embodied energy. We're doing some things that haven't been done before in our community that I think will help inform what you've said are your goals, looking at climate, looking at the character of the community, looking at equity of the community. So we have all this data, just like back then, to share with you so that you can make informed decisions. And with that, also part of that, a big part of that, is how we outreach to the community and talk about what our values are today and where do we want to go. So with that, I can't believe I have 2 minutes.
I know, I'm gonna see if the board, I think we're in agreement that you're coming back. And you do need time to, because the information you provided us today, I think is terrific. It's a good start. I think the history is important. We know where we've been. I was given that green book when I first started on P&Z by Lance Clark, because I had so many questions. He was like, just read this. Answer a lot of your questions, because I had to score growth management, which was not easy. And I think times have changed. Our code has changed, and we need to look at that as far as what we need to do if we continue competition and what questions we need to be asking as part of competitions. What can the community do that really provides a benefit to the community?
Do we have a current count of dwellings?
Yes. I can't tell you what they are because they're by, I'd have to go back and look at all of our master plans and pull those together. I know Ellen does, I just don't at the top of my head.
Looking at your, I love the chart. It's really helpful. It's great. Now, is growth management, we call it GMQS, but is it really GMQS or is it, I'm just looking at the oval in the center of your
Right.
chart.
It's Growth Management Quota System.
Right.
That's what that stands for.
Now, is that labeled properly? I was thinking, it seems like this is growth management,
Well-
all encompassing, but is GMQS all encompassing?
The regulation in the code is the Growth Management Quota System because of the way that it works, where you have to go through, there's a quota, and you have to go through a process in order for us to use that.
It's part of growth management.
Do we
It's
still
part
have a
of-
quota?
Pardon me?
Do we still have a quota?
Yes, but now primarily people compete for square footage. So, and I really want Suzanne Wolf at the table when we come back to talk about the more current, because she's involved, you know, on the day-to-day of what's coming through, what it looks like. And
It's still lingering out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
There's
that
a
sounds
lot of
great.
lingering approvals that could all come through in the same week.
Well,
Trucks,
I
bulldozers.
aspire to have steady state in here somewhere. Steady state management would be, you know, maybe it's time. We've more than doubled our population since they were writing this. Everybody notices the pressure on all the infrastructure. Maybe it's time to start thinking about how do we maintain a steady state and have a healthy economy and quality of life, rather than thinking that it has to be growth oriented.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. It's just there's this thing called private property rights.
That's part of
And
the
so
conversation.
we always have to have that in the conversation as far as takings issues. And a lot of that's how TDRs came about at that time, was we had to provide something because of the change in zoning in the rural remote area, and how could we compensate people for the value of their private property. Tough call.
And then the
I've
next
got
big
the book written by the guy who took it to the Supreme Court. Didn't I give you a copy of that? I met him at a conference.
The moonshot
Guy
will be to
from
figure
North
out
South
what else
Carolina.
could we do with TDRs to neutralize them.
So those are all incredible discussions that I think once we have all that data together, we can, and you know your history lessons and you know how growth management works today, then I think we are going to have the best conversations ever. And this community is going to be in that energized place again, because I do believe that there's so many creative people here that we're going to be able to really come up with what works for the community. So,
Depending on the
Part
time of
two.
day, it will either involve coffee or beer.
Yeah, I really think we
There's no
need to go back
cigarettes.
to our commitment to
cigarettes.
have another retreat, because to really have a conversation, can't have a hard stop in 20 minutes, we're stopping this conversation, no matter where we go.
Well, and that can be part of the planning for next year, but, and I don't have a problem with that, but, you know, the public input's gonna be really part of it,
Yeah,
so.
but I think before we go to public input, we need to have conversations so that we can frame how we want to ask for public input. What are we asking input about? We need time to frame that, and we talked about doing it this fall, not waiting to the retreat next year, and I would really still like to see that happen.
Well, and I think we have to be careful in doing that, because the public may perceive that if we've already made up our minds, we're telling them, give us comment on what we've already decided, so you have to.
No, not on what we've decided. The areas that we need input about, not what kind of input or what kind of decision we're gonna make, but just sort of frame the conversation so that it has relevance to, you know, the whole thing. I mean, anyway, I
I think that's a broader discussion for the board to have when we are looking at our time frame between now and,
right.
because we're just keying up for budget, so our time is gonna be interesting. The fall is, I know, it's not an excuse, it's the fact. Budget time takes up hours and hours and hours of board time.
Yeah, I know. It's just come up several times that we're gonna do this, and it's not on the calendar yet, so I just wanted to
Well, we might
remind
have
us.
it-
Well,
I
I
share
can come-
Francie's sense of urgency.
yeah, and I can come back to you with more about a public outreach outline. You've tasked me with that, and I do need to come back. I just thought it was important because you had asked for a deeper dive into
Yeah,
growth
that's great.
management. So,
Really great.
Yeah, and the problem is, and I don't have a problem doing a retreat to just discuss this issue, but right now we're trying to educate the board
No, I
on
get that.
what's behind the issue so we can have that conversation
Exactly.
and make determinations.
Yeah,
Because
I
if we were to do it quickly, we would still have questions about what the data is, and we would be getting ourselves nowhere.
I'm
So-
assuming after Cindy
and
comes back.
Steve was raising his hand.
After what?
After Cindy comes back to us again,
Oh,
it's
am I-
Suzanne.
Cindy's going away?
Steve's waving his hand there, Patty.
What's that?
Steve wants.
Oh, Steve, sorry.
So, thanks Cindy for your presentation. It was really interesting seeing the green book, which I saw that around my folks' house a lot over the years.
I
It
bet.
was on my dad was referring to that a lot. Also, I remember how proud they were at the time to have put in effect a slow growth policy. And you could really tell the difference when you cross from Eagle County or Garfield County into Pitkin County, because the level of the amount of growth was a lot less when you cross the county line. And that was a very noticeable effect for a long time. But even with the 2.47% growth over 40-year period, that still amounts to a lot of growth. And, we're playing catch up just at a slower pace on being fully developed. And ultimately, Greg, what you want is to start working for quality instead of quantity. What we might end up with is all the available land with that can be built might eventually be built on, and everything else will be protected by conservation easements and different covenants and whatnot. Probably will protect every bit of private land that is left in the county. So I'd be curious if Cindy, you could come back with during our discussions later on, what does full build out look like right now based on the status of all the private land in the county, and how could we reduce that total amount of total build out to something less?
Definitely.
So I'm looking forward to the future discussions, and it was interesting seeing this look at history right now.
And where we are regarding build out now, it's a little shocking what's still possible.
Yeah, no, I have all that data, and we'll bring it back.
Yeah, I heard like we're only 55% built out, that's what I heard.
Something like that, yeah.
That's shocking.
Time for this conversation?
Yep. Okay, so we will schedule time.
Yes.
And you let us know when you're ready to do that. Between Kelly and I, we do these meetings, agenda meetings every week, and we can put it out far or bring it in close, and then we'll look at some retreat time, which may be this fall, would be great, but it could be for after the first of the year, so. We have
Thank
to make
you.
sure all our ducks are lined up. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so board, we are scheduled for a break. Does the board need a break now? We can take 10?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna, how about 2:45? Can we cut it short so we can start back on time? Thank you. So we will be back at 2:45. Cindy, yes,
But I
please.
need those back, those maps.
Oh, yeah. There,
Don't
are you,
thi-
you it felt
don't
like
think you're getting away
All right,
with it.
grassroots will be back in 45. Thank you. back. This is Tuesday, August the 10th. It's a Board of County Commissioners work session. We are just back from a break, and I'm hoping to find Lisa McDonald here with us. Lisa, are you there? I don't have IT staff here helping us with technology, so I don't know where Lisa is. Lisa, are you on?
She was
Great.
there a couple minutes ago. She'll be back.
We don't know if Lisa or anybody's here with us. Thank you very much.
Just resent her the link.
She was on before break.
Yeah, she'll turn up.
There she is. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Patty.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we have, the four of us are here and ready to go. So would you please, and we've got Michaela here with us. So why don't you please take it away?
You ready to go? Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Patty. I am Lisa McDonald with the Healthy Rivers and Streams program. The item in front of you today is an emergency vehicle access easement agreement between the BOCC Commercial Park Owners Association and Pickens County. The Owners Association consists of property owners at the BOCC Commercial Park subdivision. Those properties include our Stubby's building, as we affectionately call it, where Subway is in Stubby's. The Real America Complex, apartment complex, which is a little up valley of our building. BOCC owns open space out there. Then it continues on to the Harry Teague building and the Lot J, which is Workfront Basalt LLC. Lot J is the last undeveloped lot in the subdivision out there. The easement, if approved, will be located on the Owners Association common area property located at the end of Emma Road. As some of you might recall, part of our approvals for construction of the Whitewater Park, the town of BOCC required emergency access from both sides of the river and an emergency and an easement from the Owners Association as it crosses the section of their property at the end of Emma Road there. The area is approximately 600 square feet section of common space of the Commercial Owners Association, and currently access off of Emma Road, the current access off of Emma Road to the Whitewater Park is a straight shot through the cul-de-sac. But with the development of the end lot at the end of the road there, we will need to adjust the emergency access to accommodate the building envelope as their building envelope comes into the cul-de-sac. So we wouldn't be able to get emergency vehicles down there without moving the road. The Owners Association recently voted to approve the easement as drafted. Rye and I met with them on several occasions. Rye Neely is our Assistant County Attorney, and I just received an executed copy of the easement agreement on Friday. The county will adjust the road according to some SGM engineered drawings and provide landscaping to buffer the gravel road view from the property owners of Lot I, which is Harry Teague's building, and Lot J, which is the future Emma Flack's building. We will plant landscaping out there that consists of non-bearing fruit trees so as not to attract bears or other wildlife. And we plan to plant similar landscaping so we are consistent with the Emma Flack's development landscaping plans as well. The cost estimates for construction that we received earlier in the year were approximately $24,000, but I'm anticipating maybe some increase due to construction materials, of course, as you've heard, always rising, and availability of some of that material. Landscaping costs will be determined when we get ready to plant and I'm not sure when that might happen now. The Whitewater Park can be accessed through Emma Road on the side of the Mid Ponderosa Trail, which is owned by the town of Basalt. It kind of goes behind our building, and there's they've developed a access point between the Real America building and the Harry Teague building. So we have signs ordered to direct people to park there. That will discourage, I think, any parking along the cul-de-sac down that way. The River Board moved to recommend funding for the modifications, and now the easement needs to come in front of the BOCC via an ordinance, which is scheduled to be in front of you tomorrow for first read. So that's the gist of the emergency access easement.
Okay, thank you,
Are
Lisa.
there any questions?
Yeah, does the board have any questions? I have one quick one. Steve, did you want to say something?
Sure.
Okay, so they're building a 3-story building there, correct?
That's the plan, yeah, that's what I have heard, and I think they're in the planning stages with Town of Basalt, a 3-story apartment building.
And isn't this in the floodplain?
I don't think it is. I think it's just outside of it. I'm not really sure on that.
Yeah, it just, it seems like it should be, many of the places we know. I know when they put that new, CDOT put the new highway bridge in, they kind of altered the old floodplain. So they may have tossed
Right.
more of it over to the south side direction, but, okay, I was just curious. But it's
Yeah.
definitely something we need to do because we need to have smooth and easy emergency access down to that water park,
Right.
so. Does the board have any
Yeah.
comments? Because we'll be seeing it again tomorrow afternoon. Steve, please?
It took me a little while looking at the map to figure out where exactly the green park was located on the one drawing. But then I finally figured it out that the building that was shown was the one they're planning on building. And once I realized that, the existing access goes right through the middle of where they're going to put the building. We obviously have to have access, and it looks like it works okay. So I think that's what's important.
Yep, and we did work with the fire department, and everybody approved the plan as well, so.
But it's in the county, but it's Basalt. Any other questions? So Lisa, I guess we will see you again tomorrow.
See you tomorrow,
And
yeah.
we'll
And I
miss-
think Ryan will be joining us if there's anything else you guys think of in the meantime.
Okay. And now
All right,
we
thank you.
sent
Bye.
Charlotte upstairs, and now we need Charlotte back downstairs. So we will wait for Charlotte to come back and join us. Thanks, Lisa. And I don't know if John Peacock is still on. John?
I'm here.
While we're waiting for Charlotte, do you want to, why don't we use the time wisely? Do you have anything about future agendas?
I actually do not have any notes for future agendas other than it sounds like we need to talk about a follow-up day or days. I think get some clarity from the board on the mid-year retreat, whether we would want to try and schedule one day or multiple days like we did earlier in the year. I'd assume one.
Yeah, and I think we'll need Kelly involved in that, so let's, as soon as we have Kelly back, which should be, I know she's gonna try and join us, but I think it's just briefly tomorrow for the housing impact fee. But maybe the following Tuesday, we can bring that up in open discussion. Is that okay with the board?
Sure.
Okay. And, John, I don't have anything for future agendas. But I'll think of
Wow.
something by tomorrow for open discussion, I promise.
I hope Charlotte's running down the stairs then.
She's actually right here. All right.
Hi, Charlotte.
Charlotte, please. Thanks, John.
Okay, I don't know if I'm in the right spot here, but, okay. If I.
Can I just turn your video on?
Oh.
And that's all you need to do. And if you want the view to be a little bit different, go over
I
here.
want to thank the board for bearing with me today,
All right,
trying
thank
to
you.
be in a techno position I'm not really comfortable in. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yes.
Please.
So, Bob Plissette had applied for a position and was interviewed on July 6th. He was applying for the Telecommunications Advisory Board, and we have not made a decision on that yet. So that's one decision. And then the Healthy Rivers and Streams amended terms, we found that because of COVID, we kind of got messed up on our terms of people. It's actually Mr. Ogilvy and Ms. Huber. They assumed terms of people who had resigned, and instead I assigned, when they were interviewed, I assigned a 4-year term instead of the term that the person who resigned had at that time. So that messed up our staggering. So I checked with Jeanette, and we can bring that together with a decision. If you guys make a decision on the tab board, I can write that amendment in there to amend that previous
So you'll
resolution.
re-stagger the terms?
Yes.
Yeah,
So then we'll be back on track.
I think the board would be okay with that, I'm looking.
Yeah.
And what about Bob? Bob?
Bob Plissette?
Yeah, I would like to appoint him.
I wasn't here on the 6th. I haven't watched.
He's a good candidate. Steve, yes, please?
I was thinking that we appointed Chuck Ogilvy when Kate Hudson was up for renewal, and we picked Chuck instead. I think maybe he should have a full term, but if you could check on that, Charlotte, that was my recollection.
Okay, I will. Lisa has sent me her records, and we've compared, and but I'll double check that.
Okay.
So.
And Steve, you're comfortable with appointing Bob to the TAB, right, Translator Board?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am. I went back and looked, viewed his interview again today. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with him.
Okay.
Okay.
So we will see that and
Tomorrow.
hopefully I think tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'll email it out to you tomorrow morning, and yeah, it's on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah.
So, then
I'll
the
be in
other.
early and I'll get a hard copy, so I have it in my packet.
Okay. The other item is the APSHA joint interviews. For last Friday was the deadline. There was Damian Williamson was supposed to be interviewed, but he,
Had something
schedule-wise, could not be at that interview. So I didn't know if you wanted me to try and schedule another interview for him, or if we were, and I know that's a joint decision.
Well, yeah, I think we should interview him because he did submit an application, and it's up to him if he, I think we should.
We should ask him
Okay.
if he intends to keep his application and keep his interview. He may have decided
Yeah,
to bail.
and
Right.
maybe he's not, his time issues might be a little more difficult than he thought, so.
Yeah.
So let's contact him and see what he wants to do, and then we'll contact the city and see what they wanna do.
Okay.
And then we'll figure out what we can do.
Now, do we have to interview them in a joint meeting? Is
That's-
that necessary?
I believe that's
What the city
probably what the
requested.
city requested, so, then we would, if he's interested, we'll have to figure out a time.
We
to
might
do
be
it.
able to get some time on when the city's already meeting on a Tuesday. I think the city has meetings, we could do maybe 15-minute,
Zoom.
Okay.
Zoom. Yeah,
No, it says there's another applicant.
that applicant I don't think is pursuing.
Oh, no, they are not.
Okay, so somebody thought about it and then.
Yeah,
backed out. Okay.
yeah. There's some conflict, so, which is too bad, but, Steve, please?
So when we were doing the interviews with the city council, Damien was actually attending early on during the interviews, and then he disappeared from the screen after a while. So we need to check with him. It seemed to me like, well, maybe he decided he didn't want to be interviewed at that point. But anyhow, he had been at the meeting. and then wasn't there when it came time to interview him.
He had a situation come up at work. He works at the airport, and there was a situation that came up, and he needed to address that. It was a priority. I mean, it was my understanding that he was going to try and come back on, and he didn't. So we do need to follow up with him, and we will, and see
Yeah,
if he
was
wants to, and then we'll worry
Okay.
about setting up a process.
And he works for an airline, not for the airport,
Air-
not for the county.
Works for, I don't know who he works for. He was at the airport.
I don't believe he's a county employee.
No, he
He's
must
not.
work at the airport.
No, and it was a work
Okay,
schedule
that
conflict.
explains why he disappeared then. Okay,
I
thanks.
think he's at the FBI.
Charlotte, do you remember the name of the first woman whom we interviewed? Do you have that record of the
Oh,
order of the
Allison.
interviews?
Not right in front of me,
Allison?
but Rebecca.
No,
No,
she
I
was the
think-
last.
yeah,
She
I
was the
think
last.
Allison Beck,
Allison Bektish.
That's right.
and then Dave Cook,
Mhm.
and then Rebecca.
Right.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
I'll have a resolution
So
for you
now
tomorrow.
we're back to the birthday boy. How old now, John? You're 1 day older than you were on your birthday, right? You're on mute, John.
Oh, I'm still 35, Patty.
That's what we thought. That makes me 34, so we'll go with it.
Yeah.
But happy birthday. We miss having you here, but we will see you tomorrow, correct? Okay, in
Yes,
person?
I would have been in today. Our flight just got in late, and I got home kind of nip and tuck to join the meeting.
Okay, well, we got you now. So we're gonna move to open discussion, if that's okay with the board? Yep. And John, you have a few things lined up for us, I believe.
Yeah, do you want me to go ahead and cover those first, Patty?
Yeah, why don't we do those?
Okay. And I'm trying to remember which one is
Glenwood-
first on the agenda.
Glenwood
I think
Canyon.
it's
Yeah, the update.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the board is aware of a lot of this, but for the board and the public, just want to give an update of what we do know at this point. There has been a declared emergency, of course, related to the debris flows that have closed Glenwood Canyon. Eagle, Garfield, and Picken were included in that. The governor's office did request $116 million in aid. Good news today, they did get the first 10% awarded. They made that request yesterday. And 11.6 million was awarded today. Those funds have several uses that they'll go to, including debris removal, addressing impacts on state highways and alternate routes, including Independence Pass and Cottonwood Pass, supplemental traffic control services, and then of course the repairs to the damage, and looking at opportunities for geohazard mitigation so that future incidents potentially can be avoided. So I think the fact that the first 10% was awarded is a good sign for the Federal Highway Commission awarding the rest. There's still some, I think, question marks around timelines. Right now, we're still waiting for official communications through CDOT's Incident Command on updated timelines for debris removal and repairs. It does sound like single lane could be open within weeks, and we are aware that the governor's requested that plans be made such that traffic is restored through the canyon prior to ski season. Again, I think the CDOT staff has been busy both with the debris clearing, but also with the plans. And I think the award of the federal funding will probably help accelerate those timelines. So we'll be continuing to monitor communications from Incident Command there. Traffic, And traffic management is probably the main issue in our valley. Currently, the National Guard is being utilized to manage traffic on Cottonwood Pass, but are not currently operating in Pickens County on Independence Pass. We are working with CDOT, and we have some additional requests into them. Currently, they do have contractors that will be staffing traffic control points on both sides of the pass, Lake County side and Pickens County side, to monitor, especially for oversized vehicles. We are also requesting that CDOT contract or provide a courtesy patrol on Indy Pass that would be available to provide daytime assistance to either motorists who are broken down or otherwise in need of assistance getting over the pass. And we hope to hear back on those additional measures later this week. We hope that the funding that's being awarded will help facilitate that. And then, of course, the SO and State Patrol are continuing to respond to incidents as they occur on the pass. Garfield County and Eagle County Boards of Commissioners are meeting, I believe right now. They might be wrapping up with CDOT to further talk about Cottonwood Pass and maybe potentially improvements on Cottonwood Pass. We'll see what comes out of that. We are hearing anecdotal stories about slow supply chains. However, we're not seeing any valley-wide shortages of supplies or essential goods at this point. And we've been able to maintain our fuel supplies and such at the airport. So we've been able to manage that. City of Aspen, during the emergency period, and Patty, this goes to, I think, one of the questions you had raised earlier. When they make a determination that traffic has gotten to a point on Main Street or Highway 82 that it is affecting the ability for emergency vehicles to respond elsewhere in the community, they are doing a managed use of the HOV and bus lanes to move people, move traffic out of town and to relieve some of that pressure. I believe their main trigger right now is when traffic is backed up to Aspen Street. And the trigger is really around the ability of emergency response vehicles to navigate the city. We do not have the same protocol going the other direction at this point.
And John, the city has also, wait, real quick, the city is also managing the intersection of Cemetery Lane and 82, and I think that's really been helping also. So, I mean, and today there's a heck of a lot less traffic up here. Town is relatively quiet. As Glenwood Springs yesterday was almost scary. It was so quiet. It was like, what's going on? I don't know out there. So I don't know why that reason is, but it would be great to take a deep breath, but you can't because of all the smoke in the air. So, yeah.
We do know CDOT's been taking steps to have the pass removed as an alternate route on mapping applications and that sort of thing while local traffic is still allowed. I don't know if that's impacting it or not.
Okay. Francie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the public that I was at the Frying Pan Caucus meeting last night, and there are people who are trying to use Eagle Thomasville Road as a way to avoid everything, and they are really encouraging people not to do that, as is the Forest Service. They were there as well. And there was a car that was stuck up there. I think it might have high-centered. They think it was a Lexus. And the people left the car there, left, and in the meantime, it looks like somebody in a truck got impatient and just pushed the Lexus off, and the wheels falling off, and it's all bashed in. And so that might happen to you if you try to drive your car over the Eagle Thomasville Road and get stuck. So please don't choose that route as an alternative. It's not appropriate.
And we all heard about the Greyhound bus going up over the Mesa, Coffee Pot Road. It ripped up its oil pan, and yeah, pretty much you saw pictures of the bus. So please, there are reasons why those roads are not accessible year-round. There's reasons why they are accessible with high-centered vehicles, four-wheel drive lifted. So please, we want to let the public know that. And it's my understanding that 50, Gunnison County, they've stepped back on their county. They're straightening the road over there because it was too curvy. And they've stepped back on that construction. John, do you know anything about that? So people are able to get through the long way that way?
Yeah, Patty, I don't have details on that, but my understanding is that they have delayed construction so that Highway 50 can be used as an alternate route.
Great, okay.
And one positive thing is that when I was in Moffett County at the Wolf meeting last month, the store owners there are pretty happy about all the cars that have been coming through and stopping and eating in restaurants and buying things at the grocery store and spending the night.
Yeah, their sales tax revenue is going through the roof. Greg, Greg
John,
has
I just had a question about you've got this Colorado National Guard, or have been deployed on in some areas, but they're not coming into here. And I'm just wondering, is there a reason they're not coming to Pitkin County? Does it have something to do with disaster or emergency declaration? Or, because I keep thinking, boy, it'd be great to have those guys on all those passes we just talked about.
Yeah, so I know there's discussion about that now, Greg. I think they're trying to manage the traffic with the CDOT contractors as much as possible, and potential courtesy shuttles. And I will continue to visit with the Sheriff's Department, who's been in touch with the state on that. So I think what they're hoping to do is to, get the traffic better managed on Independence Pass. If that is not the case, it's potential that we would have National Guard helping out with that.
Great, thanks.
John, and if there's a housing issue with National Guard, I have a thought I'll run by you when I see you tomorrow.
She wants to put
Well, and
tents in
we
the yard.
are doing some housing actually at the airport for National Guard resources.
That was exactly what I was going to suggest. Okay, good idea.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Steve has a question. Steve, go ahead, please.
One question about Hagerman Pass. I remember seeing a notice that somebody was stuck up there, but I presume that was removed. But are people regularly going over Hagerman Pass to get to Leadville at this time?
Steve, I've only heard anecdotally that people are trying to use Hagerman Pass. Of course, that is not encouraged, especially for folks who may not know what they're getting into there. But I only have anecdotal information about that.
Okay. Second question has to do with the stoplights at the Narrows up on Independence Pass. Is that there just because of the highway, the I-70 closure to manage the flow of traffic through the lower Narrows, and not a permanent kind of a thing, or is it an experiment? It is kind of an experiment, actually, to see how that is changing the flow of traffic there.
Yeah, no, it is really about managing the volume of traffic. And I will tell you, I got caught up there going back and forth in Denver, and a lot of folks get on that and they really don't know how to navigate the Narrows. They want to stay in the middle of the road and want people to move over off the cliff or into the rocks to make
Back
room
up.
for them.
It's happened.
Which, I saw it happen in front of me, and I'm sure a lot of locals have.
I've had people
And so I think that was one of the ways that they were keeping the traffic from getting clogged up there when there are high volumes going over the pass.
So the reason I asked if it was, a permanent thing, it might not be a bad idea to do a permanent stoplight there if it was more on demand. So it could let everybody through before the light changes, going one direction.
I think the challenge is infrastructure up there right now. Those need to be manual. Those are manually operated versus being able to communicate with each other when there are vehicles or not.
Okay. So I-70. All right, we're rolling.
Was that I-70 or was that board open discussion?
That was his discussion on I-70. Now we're going to jail update.
What
and then
happened to
we'll,
board open discussion?
we discussed it. We're going to let John go with his 2 items first, and then we're going to go to board.
Thank you. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Where was I?
You were on I-70,
On
stuck in
I-70.
traffic. All right, John, let's do a jail update, and then we'll go to board open discussion.
Yeah, and this probably will not take 15 minutes, but I just wanted to let the board know that we are continuing to work towards that long-term planning goal for the jail. We have a smaller internal project team that consists of the sheriff, undersheriff, jail commander, Rich Engelhart, myself, and Laura, our public engagement manager, was on there, but of course she's going to be gone for a little while now, happily after having her baby. We want to bring back to the board, and I know Kelly has a lot of interest in this. I want to be sure that she is here for the discussion, but what we are working on is a proposal for basically a criminal justice coordinating committee that will help inform the broader discussions around the criminal justice system here, and that committee would help the project team and key decision makers, including you as the board and the sheriff, understand that the complex and interrelated nature of the criminal justice system in Pickens County, and the best way to invest resources and programs and jail infrastructure, and whether there are programming gaps that maybe we look at as alternative. I know there's a lot of energy on mental health support and substance support and such as alternative paths for jails, for the jail. Right now, we're just exploring interest of different folks and participating on that. It would range, having representatives, of course, from our sheriff's department, but also the 9th Judicial District, potentially chief judge, public defender's office, police chief representation. Board representation is something we'd like to see, a liaison or representative from the Board of Commissioners who can speak to some of the complexities of these issues. Our Human Services Department, Public Health, Mental Health Coordinator, as that's going to be really integrated, and so on. And so we will suss out a little bit more of that recommendation and bring it back when we have a full board to discuss and particularly talk about board involvement or such in that. We have been interviewing and vetting basically criminal justice planners, basically consultants. We hope that these will fit under the planning dollars that we have already budgeted for this purpose. But really what we're looking for is somebody that can offer this criminal justice coordinating committee and you all as decision makers kind of a broad and nuanced perspective on how the criminal justice system should function, how ours is functioning, what gaps we might want to be looking at, and what's possible in the community of our size and with our resources, that can help the different components of the criminal justice system really hopefully coordinate. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to get ready to bring a more fully vetted proposal in front of the board. Just wanted to make sure you knew that time was being spent there on those issues.
Great. Board have any questions for John on this? I think it'll be status, we'll keep moving forward and John will keep us in the loop. Okay, so Greg, you have open discussion?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't get past that up. Kelly reminded me that I hadn't really reported on a meeting I had with Senator Bennett and Hickenlooper and Secretary Holland down in Ridgeway a couple weeks ago. And it was mostly about the CORE Act and the 30 by 30 plan that were being put forth. And it was also a listening session mostly, and the reason I went primarily is to talk about what we're experiencing in terms of influxes on recreation and on infrastructure in our communities. And what was remarkable was that every commissioner was there. There are 4 or 5 other commissioners there, and they all said the same exact thing. They've seen enormous growth in traffic on camping areas and county roads and recreational areas, and everybody's taxed out, and the housing, they all have the same housing issues. They're all going through the same incredible growth pressure that we are. I thought that was interesting. Specifically, I wanted to talk about carbon mitigation, because we've been with CORE researching a carbon mitigation program to capture fugitive methane in Coal Basin, of which there's enough, a significant amount that should be dealt with in accordance with our greenhouse gas and climate action plan. And so tomorrow I'm probably going to propose that we make a resolution reaffirming the county's commitment to that sort of thing, just to support the efforts of Secretary Holland and Secretary Bennett, to help us find the funding and the wherewithal and the permitting to actually do something about the fugitive methane in Coal Basin in particular. So there's that. The other thing I was going to mention was that the solar panels are going on in our solar farm, and we're seeing that. They're starting to go in, and we're going to see more coming faster, I think, now that they're up and rolling, and that's exciting after what seemed like long delays.
That's a Pickens County and Holy Cross joint project?
It's actually Aspen Sanitation District, and is doing it with a developer who will eventually sell it to Holy Cross. Holy Cross will buy the power, and we have an interest in it that John could probably articulate better than I can. And it's finally happening, and I think they're having supply chain issues like everyone else.
Yeah.
They've had some delays, but as I understand it, they're still on track according to their last presentation to us.
Panels were stuck on a boat off the shore of
The
California.
panels got stuck, and then the panels arrived in the middle of the night last
God.
night, so some neighbors were wondering why they were there in the middle of the night.
There was also some after-hours construction activity.
Oh,
So we want to
okay.
thank
So
your
we'll
neighbor
find
for
out.
bringing that to our attention. We've nipped that one in the bud.
Did we catch? Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't brought up to speed on that one. Then the other thing is just reflecting on the tragedy on Capitol Peak last week. Just wanted to say that my heart goes out to Mountain Rescue, and especially the person who is apparently going to have months of rehab after having been in a rock fall, kicked by climbers that were above, who were on the ridge in the vicinity above where the rescuers were trying to do a body recovery. And I just wanted to say I've been thinking a lot about that, and I'm hoping a speedy recovery for the people who were injured there, and condolences to the family of the climber who fell.
And I followed up with the sheriff's office, and I need to follow up further to see if there's any kind of fund set up for the mountain rescue volunteers. And I hope to have an update on that tomorrow.
That's an excellent idea.
And your
GoFundMe.
question about the growth issues with other counties, I did forward on to both Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett's office the mountain migration study report.
Good.
So they have that and data. So their staff will be, reviewing that and bringing the bullet points back to the senators. So thanks for the update. Steve, did you have some open discussion? And then I'll try and get back to you, John Peacock.
Just a question for Greg on the solar farm. Are there any more dust issues at this point, which when they were doing the drilling was an issue, especially for the one gentleman who kept us well informed on that. But the stage they're at now, is it raising dust? And it makes me think that when the project is done, if they could do some revegetation so any vehicles in there would not raise any dust at all, maybe just some really low growing kind of grass or something that would cover the dirt that is exposed now.
Yeah, I think that's a good question for Leslie Lamont regarding, when they finish up over there, whether it'll be landscaping or gravel on the roads, or I know they put mag chloride down and that helped with the road issues. When they're drilling, occasionally you get some dust, but quite honestly, the dust has not been. There was one day when I saw a plume that actually left the property. And it's impressive when you see a plume shoot up after they drill a hole, but it wasn't going anywhere most of the time. There was one time when it kind of flowed down over toward W/J, and I think they're aware of it, and the rains came in and did a lot to help put that dust down. But since then, I haven't seen any dust when I've been out there. There has been some noise. They're pounding these things into the ground, and there have been some noise complaints, but the noise has not been beyond the reasonable amount. And quite honestly, you'd have trouble hearing it over the sound of the highway or the airplanes flying in. But yes, we have a vigilant neighbor who points out all that stuff. And I did speak to Leslie regarding just that it's the metal posts are a shiny metal. Some of the mounting hardware is shiny, but we've been assured that the solar panels themselves have maybe a black matte or anodized finish on the frames, so the frames won't be highly reflective, because sometimes you'll see a solar field and the panels themselves aren't reflective, but the silver aluminum frames are to a high degree, and that's something we specify that they cannot do and should not do. And so I'm looking forward to seeing some panels go in to verify that that's the plan, and Leslie assures me that it is. So I think those issues will be solved. And the noise, a solar farm makes no noise at all after it's installed. So we're doing the noise now, and then it won't be making noise like an oil well might.
And there is a revegetation plan that was part of the approval, so I think we should be good to go on that. And there is a bond that they put up for mitigation of any reflective issues, so we did that just to ensure that they followed the word that they gave us, that it would be non-reflective.
There's a bond for that.
I think we did it because we were very.
It was for when they did take it out at the end of its life.
No, I think there was something we were really, really insistent upon.
Reflectivity was big
yeah.
for me. Yeah.
So.
Okay, great.
All right. So, should I go to John Peacock, or Francie, do you have anything?
I don't, because I said my thing about the caucus, and I'm good.
All right. Well, I'll come back to you if you have anything. John P.
I don't have anything other than the two items I brought up.
Okay. So it's only 3:29, guys. I mean, I know I'm efficient, but not this efficient.
Good, Patty. This is the best I have ever seen you do.
So, was the board, has anything else the board wants to bring to our attention, or staff?
I could mention one other.
Go ahead.
One other little thing. It's an early. I was approached by some high school students who were very interested in electric vehicles, and they were talking about how they wanted to try to retrofit a car and electrify it, take the motor out and put an electric motor in, and that got me thinking. And I ended up speaking with Steve Skadron at CMC and with Holy Cross, Chris Bilby at Holy Cross, and some others. And we ended up having a call that was really enthusiastic about perhaps creating an electrification program for cars with high schools and with CMC. And it turns out, over in the Eagle Valley, they've already established something like that. They've got a garage in Gypsum and an auto shop and an auto education program through CMC and Gypsum where they're beginning to do that. And so Steve and I were asking, well, are we going to do that over here? We hope they will at some point.
And what do they actually do at it?
Well, some people have talked about how can I electrify my car rather than buy an expensive electric vehicle.
I see.
So
cool.
So it may or may not. But what was pointed out is there may be a huge need for auto service technicians to understand electric vehicles because we've got this push for 50% by, well, whatever President
30.
Biden said, 2030. That's a huge push.
Most auto repair shops are doing that, sending their repair guys out for certification in electrification.
Right.
But Raymond Auger, Camilla's husband.
I know Raymond. I've been talking to him
okay,
too.
I'm going to say he already did this. He retrofitted his car, made it electric.
Well, it's a whole new engine, right? I mean,
it's all
the whole
so
new
much
engine.
control
so you
system.
keep
everything.
your body, and you get a whole new engine.
Yep, you keep the transmission and nothing else. So anyway, that conversation and what was really fun is to have all the enthusiastic voices from Holy Cross and CMC and our former mayor Steve, who's the chancellor or
he's the assistant dean
of the local campus, and so that'll be an interesting conversation. We'll see how far it goes.
Yeah, and Solar Rollers, the project that's been in the valley for some years, is where the kids build remote controlled cars and race them in their solar.
Oh, I've seen that. We've had them at our school. We've done a lot of
Yeah.
those.
I am. When I mysteriously received some money hanging on my gate, I donated it to them so they could go to competition in Denver. This was some years ago.
That's really
Nice.
cool.
Yeah, it's a great program.
You never found out who was?
No, never found out who left that envelope hanging on my gate. Pretty unusual. But the Solar Roller and Colorado Wild Public Lands benefited from it. So, all right. So tomorrow noontime, right, Mr. Peacock? Grassroots. We'll see you tomorrow. IT, Michaela, thanks you so much. We appreciate your help today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Out early.
Amazing.
Jesse, what we'll do tomorrow.
Totally amazing.